on to the June board meeting for Ignite CDA, Coeur d'Alene's Urban Renewal Agency. If you'd all stand and help me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now it's time for public comment. Is there any public comment? Please come forward. And introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. I'm Ed Stafford. I live at 6920 North Glens Ford. Coeur d'Alene. During last month's board meeting, there were representatives of the Chamber of Commerce that were here to seek $300,000 for chamber function monies that were needed. It was noted. Do I need to start over?
No.
Okay. During that session, it was noted that if the monies were approved, there was money in the Lakes District which could be used. Now, the Chambers of Commerce were formed out of the desire for businesses to have a body that would safeguard and promote the interests of the various businesses within a community. Given that function of the Chamber, my question is, why aren't the benefactors, that is, the local businesses, supplying these needed funds? The Chamber needs to approach its members. The money in the Lakes District should remain there and be returned to the city upon its closing at the end of September. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'll go down on the agenda and I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Next up, there'll be a presentation by Kiki Miller for the Regional Housing Growth Issues Partnership. Welcome, Kiki.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to be here, Commissioners. I am representing the Regional Housing and Growth Issues Partnership, and I did present to you once before quite some time ago. So what I'm here to do is give you kind of an update, let you know what's happening currently and what some of the projections are so that you're up to speed with what the partnership is doing. As you know, the partnership was formed in 2021 at the beginning of the year. It's a non-funded collaborative effort. There's 40 organizations, and there's a full roster online of who the working group and who those organizations are. I'll tell you, in our twice-a-month meetings, we have a very high level of participation. We have folks who step in if the representative can't make it. So we have been gaining some momentum over this last year. I want to touch base on the volunteer subcommittees really quick and let you know what their work has provided for us in the last 17 months that we've been working on this. There is an official open space committee that the county adopted at the end of this last year. Those are the folks there up in the upper left-hand corner who are Callahan, Hansen, and Snyder who are manning that. If you had seen in their last public meeting that they brought to the Board of Commissioners, they are talking to Bond Council about a potential land acquisition bond at this time coming forward. That was something that originally a year and a half ago was very top priority for the citizens that we polled, was to acquire some land for open space and preserve that. So that work is moving forward, and you'll hear more about that. Schools, a new development there. We've had some turnover, but they're very active in what's happening. There is a new member of our community that's joined that subcommittee that was involved in another few towns that had worked on building trusts with portfolios of housing for school faculty. So that's a new discussion on the table for them, how that may be working to preserve some affordable housing for teachers. The Home Share Kootenai County project is one that we launched as a committee, but it's now actually a nonprofit of its own. It has its own board of directors and a couple of folks leading that. We've had a number of home providers and a much longer list, obviously, of home seekers who want to participate in that program. There's a marketing campaign that we are looking at rolling out within the next 2 months, so you'll hear a lot more about what Home Share does. It's not an elder help program. It's really for anyone who wants to have a housemate that can help them while they help the housemate, and it's mutually beneficial for them. Some of the new things that are coming up is that there is a foundation called the Home Partnership Foundation out of Idaho Housing and Finance Corp. What that does is has the ability to raise and accept money and match with grant funding money funds that can be designated back to a region, a project, or an individual in order to address housing needs. So we're looking at 3 different ways, and I'll talk about that in a minute, of where we can start getting some revenue generated into an existing foundation that can put funding back here to help us with projects for our middle income workers. The resident-owned communities we've talked about before. We're continuing with builder-developer outreach and have done some great work with the Realtors Group, which is now, I think, rebranded, and Mr. Jordan would know this. I think it's Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai Regional Realtors, or Coeur d'Alene Regional Realtors Association. Coeur d'Alene Regional, yeah, instead of association. So they've expanded. I think they're around 1,200 members now. Their board approved forming a housing task force last month. We'll be working with them, and they're very enthusiastic about helping us get into some real tangible solutions that they can implement, fundraising, outreach, and some media campaigns too. I'll talk about the rental study that CDA 2030 just did for us here in another slide, and we're continuing to do builder-developer outreach with being involved with NIBCA's joint government monthly meeting. To date, since the last time I saw you, and you were at the beginning of the curve, we've done over 30 presentations to all of our councils, all of our planning and zoning commissions, chambers of commerce, other civic organizations, schools, pretty much anybody who has a group that would listen. So we have done that. An important thing that's coming up in the next 2 months is we are planning a full evening joint workshop with planners and the planning and zoning commissions and our legal team. And our purpose for doing that is that as we put this work together, it's very important for these people who come in and out on these commissions to understand how they can utilize the tools that we've vetted out for them, how they can craft that into changes that they make to their zoning ordinances, and how they can add their skill sets and questions and problems in their particular towns. So this is a big meeting that's coming up, and the working group has been planning that for the last month. It'll be likely before the latest, the middle of September. Education into all of these other realms is also a huge piece. As we come up with new items, our advisory group is pushing that information out to the public and their groups. Some of the things that are part of that workshop and part of what we're starting to talk about in our next level is through these planner-developer agreements are being discussed. You'll see more about that if you didn't hear it at Planning and Zoning. It was just presented in Coeur d'Alene. Modifications in the other communities in the region are happening, and some of the things that can happen within these developer agreements are addressing local worker housing as these projects come together for upzones or annexations. Another thing that's happening within this current events realm is the county is providing some information to us that is kind of letting them know what is happening with changes and missed opportunities or zone changes that don't get approved, what happens in the county when those get pushed off there, and kind of getting a better layman's view picture of what our growth is doing to the region as a whole. There's a bunch of projects pending that have fallen into these subcommittees, and there's actually I will say that I'm working on 3 different projects in other jurisdictions, which include one in Hayden that is looking at request for increase in density that incorporates deed restrictions for a specific industry within their product. All of this is being vetted out as to how that's going to come together, but I'm working on that one there. There's 2 more in Rathdrum that are kind of brand new ideas that we are taking our tools to bring to them to say this is how that could look before they go to the landowner, before they go to the developer or planners or planning and zoning commission. So they really have something to bring to the table that can address local worker housing. This toolkit that I've showed you before, this is a snapshot of the website. But what we're really doing is using this as kind of the guiding piece that is the educational resource for all of these folks who are making these planning decisions and what they need to do. There's some things that we have done is that, just a minute, I wrote myself a note here and now I forgot where I left it, and I said, don't forget to tell them about that on this part. At the Developers Council meeting, we had a group of builders who had come forward and literally started asking where they could go as a resource to say, if we have an idea, but we don't want it shared publicly, but we have a way that we could do something, do you have a committee that you could help us vet out a what-if scenario? So that's a new thing that's going to happen on the toolkit, is sort of a panel of what-if who can take those things, bring them forward and vet them out through all kinds of different channels to say, would this work for this possibly problem piece of land that they really couldn't do anything with, didn't pencil for them, but what if we got these things to be able to be applicable to that? These are the kind of brainstorming and networking things that are kind of going on. We're working a lot more closely with our realtor group because they're giving us a lot more data on I did talk to you about home share. I won't go into that one again. A lot more data on the housing market, and we've been hearing that our prices are coming down, and there might be the bubble is flattening out. And the reality is there isn't any data locally that says our houses are going to go down to be able to be the pre-pandemic rate that says our median income worker can afford a $500,000 product. At the end of 2019, when the housing study came out, that was the median home price was $500,000. It could come back down to that from where it spiked, but with our median income, and we're 80 to 125%, that's what we're talking area median income, they'd have to be in the 300 to 350 range. So I check the MLS all the time. There's somewhere between 30 to 50 of those throughout the county that aren't manufactured homes. And so the market is still very strong in our higher end, but we're still struggling in our local worker. And I do want to repeat that again. We're not talking of workforce housing, which is a HUD designated income level, low income, which is also that, affordable housing, which is something you can't really pinpoint unless you're using those terms. But we can continue to talk about people who need to live in the town where they work. As we went through that the last time the housing study showed us, and our realtors MLS data is telling it's still very strong, that the largest purchasers are retirees, second home buyers, and investors. So our local workers is where we're in that lane to say we need to keep our economy healthy by making sure those people that need to live here and plow our streets and sew our stitches up and do those sorts of labor jobs that can't be done remotely have a place to live. Coeur d'Alene 2030 did this rental survey for us. It wasn't a scientific study, it was a snapshot in time, and they did an excellent job of going through super detail of industry and also of property managers and apartment providers. This is kind of where they focused on that and what their results came back. By the way, all of this information is on the website. This is what the rental survey told us too. Most of these people, we have a huge waiting list. I think that it was on there that all of the property managers that we talked to are close to a year out. So we have a huge rental crisis, and the more that we have investment properties, the less of that market is happening. So this you already know the consequences. I think that one of the things that's really important is the turnover rate. We've been looking at the growth rate, and the studies that the group has been putting into data that's on the website too is the turnover rate. We have a lot of people leaving here. And so our growth might not be as dramatic as it had been before. The percentages might look on, especially if you look at statewide, that they're escalating at a regular projected rate. But the turnover rate, because of the people leaving, is really what's having kind of a secret and larger impact on our housing market. Those economic impacts are happening as well. We have a study that's starting out in association with Idaho nonprofits, which is basically they do a study annually that says here's what the value of the employees would be if they weren't volunteers to your economy. The volunteer rate in most of our nonprofits in Kootenai County has dropped dramatically in the last year and a half, and it wasn't just COVID. It was people who were starting to do some exit survey questions. They're getting a second job, they're going back to work full-time, they can't find daycare anymore, so our volunteer base is being dramatically affected, and it all does tie back to housing. I wanted to let you know there's 2 white papers that are available. If they weren't in your packet, they're on the website, and I gave them to Tony. But this is some progress that we've made through the Panhandle Affordable Housing Alliance. And what they have done as they've evolved since the last time we've talked is really had a mission to basically, they've put in here that their goal is for anyone who lives and works in Kootenai County making 80% to 140% AMI with limited assets to be eligible to purchase a home designated for local workers. So they've kind of gotten into that lane, and they have a bunch of tools. They've vetted out templates for deed restrictions that are available to be used. They have technical assistance for occupancy, and kind of the thing that we know, we can't control supply and demand, but we can control who occupies the supply to some degree, and so we're trying to focus energy in that level to make a difference. Land trusts and land leases and land partnerships with private developers is something that PAHA's moving forward in executing. So one thing wanted to let you know is that there's this weekly update, and it is literally every 7 to 10 days we're posting a 1-page sheet, 4 or 5 paragraphs tops, that says what the Housing and Growth Issues Partnership has been up to doing. And so I really hope that you take an opportunity to read that so you can not have to have me come here and tell you all the time. And then here's some things that I didn't put on the slide. Actually, we had a meeting on Monday, and so I had to update the PowerPoint today. So this is the first time I've gone through it, so I hope I wasn't talking really fast and didn't miss things. But I do want to let you know that there's some things. Read the weekly updates. If you can send someone to the invitation to that planning and zoning meeting, it would be very helpful. We'll be inviting some other key players in the community to have that conversation. And we have some requests that are probably going to come before Ignite. I don't know if they'll be applicable or not. We're looking at a prototype tiny home village that is within your districts, and it will be deed restricted to healthcare workers. And we have some great partnerships coming up with some land that's available, and we've been working on that. So hopefully we'll be able to push something forward there. And I say prototype because as the comp plan came forward this last time, cluster homes, tiny homes, that kind of thing is allowable in some places in Coeur d'Alene now. So what we really wanted to do is say, hey, we have an opportunity here to house some healthcare workers, which they're desperate for, as well as do something very cool so that we can introduce a quality prototype, a quality image of what can be done with something that could allow someone to live here. We have a great project potential with Habitat for Humanity, and they've changed their model dramatically. They can do a lot of the same stuff that what PAHA is doing, in that they do a land lease operation. So it isn't the one and done, so that if one family gets in there, they could flip it. So they've changed a lot, and we're working with them, putting together other partners to help them acquire some land that can do some major pieces in there. So there's also a new potential annex piece that the partnership is working with those landowners to give them an idea of what's possible for them to do, because about having the property owner take the voluntary steps to do something to help us with local worker housing is kind of where it's at. So that's what I wanted to let you guys know about, is that there's just a lot of activity going on. If you have some questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them, but I just appreciate the opportunity to keep you all up to speed. And I know we have one council member who thinks that we just should give up on affordable housing because we've lost the battle. I'm not in that camp. So I am going to continue this, and there are a number of people that know how important having local workers be able to stay here is to our community. So thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Kiki.
Thank you,
Questions?
No, I appreciate having you come down here, Kiki.
You bet. Thank
And,
you.
Can't wait to see what happens.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next up, it's the Executive Director's Report. Tony?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First up, we have a presentation from Mr. Bosley and Mr. Fuzier on the 3rd Street parking lot renovation funding request.
Which one is that? There it is. Thank you, Ignite Board, for having me before you today. I come before you to ask for funding for the 3rd Street parking lot in Midtown. So just to detail what that is. So this is the 4th Street side of it here with Montana, and then just south of Boise Avenue here on 3rd Street, we've got this other side separated by the alley. This project here is being reconstructed, and they have reconstructed this parking lot just south of the Idaho Youth Ranch. This is what that parking lot looked like, if you remember, with the Idaho Youth Ranch right here. And this was Paris Flea Market, I believe. Really distressed parking lot in pretty bad shape. Well, the developer there who's building the new development there south of the parking lot had reconstructed that, and so that's what it looks like today. Our crews will be going in to stripe that soon. We hope to have it done by now, but we haven't been able to get that. We had to work out some small issues with spacing of the parking spaces rather than making them move a ramp. We figured out how we could make it work with what's there, so we minimize disruptions to the Idaho Youth Ranch. So today I'm here to talk about the other side, which looks like this as you enter from 3rd Street. I had taken a few designs to the Parking Commission to go over different options for what that parking lot could look like. And this was the design that was decided on, which is very similar to what's there today, but it would be ripping out all the pavement to put in new pavement and then putting in lighting. This would be a swale system down here to catch all the storm water. And then we've got curbs around these landscape islands here to help direct traffic. And this right here is really going to cut down on that cut-through traffic that happens when people come from 3rd Street and they dash through here and then they go through onto 4th, or through 4th and onto Montana. By putting these curb extensions in here, the other parking lot has one also, this one right here. So it'll be like a chicane through there, so they won't be able to just speed through. So it's really going to help add some order to that. We developed a cost estimate for doing all this work, which was about $40,000, but what we're asking for is up to $50,000 because of the inevitable construction projects, that a lot of unknowns. Once we rip out that pavement, we could encounter some unsuitable soils that we have to remove or whatever, so we just want to give ourselves a little cushion there. So I would stand for any questions.
Questions?
Those look like they're all full-size spaces.
On the design that I did here,
Yeah.
yes, they're all 9 by 20.
Okay, and then I guess the Parks Department will mow the swale, I guess? How does that work?
I believe they would be, yes.
I'm gonna have to.
Yes, someone would have to.
And maintain the vegetation and
Yeah.
stuff, so. Commissioner English?
But just to remind me, in this because at one point, I think, didn't we buy that adjacent lot? I don't know if we own it or the
Just south of here?
Well, just
The
to
city purchased it.
Yeah, south, and my understanding, that was going to be part of this concept, is that?
It is not, so that is this lot right here. The house, or the
Oh, yeah,
houses
yeah.
are just off the photo there. There's no plan in place right now to relocate that and tear that building down or anything like that. So right now, this
Oh.
is just one step towards that. In the future, if we want to expand, we've got that opportunity, but nobody has made that decision.
Okay, so like I say, that's pretty much the existing footprint of the
It is. It's a
parking lot.
little smaller, actually. You can
Yeah.
see the parking blocks right here.
Right.
The parking spaces stopped right here and over here, so it was a really wide area, which just invited people to speed through there also. So this is going to add a lot more order to it.
Well, and hopefully it'll get used. The existing layout doesn't really get used, so.
Is there a difference in the number of spots?
No, well, yes, by removing, if we put these two handicap spaces here, there will be a loss of one spot here. And I believe, actually, there are two spots that would be lost here, but this is to meet our code in terms of providing a landscape buffer between the street and the parking. So we would be down a couple spaces, but overall, we still are maintaining a lot.
Yeah. It creates a maintenance issue, having grassy swales, but that's the code now, so I guess as long as Parks Department can take on some more mowing, I guess they'll be sprinkled too, probably, I would guess. Or would it just be dry land grass?
Perhaps Todd knows the
Okay.
answer to that.
Growing grass.
To answer that, great question. They are gonna have some drip lines for like the trees and stuff, irrigation. I believe the plan right now is they wanna put clover in there. It's not, doesn't require as much maintenance. We've had some success with that in areas, so, Parks would be assisting us with any maintenance there that we would need to do. So,
Okay.
Do you have something else?
That answers that.
Okay.
I mean, that answered, yep.
Please don't take this the wrong way. But if you don't know me already, then you're gonna learn about me. How come you're asking us to pay for this and the city's not paying for it?
This was not a budgeted item, and actually, well, our department would be the one performing all the work for this, and this is not something that we have in our streets and engineering budget to accomplish with this.
And so why is it a priority then? Or what, I guess, why is this coming up at this point in time? If you
Well-
didn't budget for it, it wasn't, either
Right,
you didn't.
this
yeah.
idea has been kicked around for probably 2 or 3 years now. I've come up with several different designs for what this would look like, but there was never any momentum to push it forward. But now with the Lake District closed, I mean, this is the opportunity. Otherwise, I don't know when it would be funded.
with
If I might be able
developer-
to jump in here, we've been looking to redo these two parking lots for many years up in Midtown, and we've purposely delayed doing anything until we saw what would happen with the project where the old Paris Flea Market is going. And we have budgeted $50,000 in this final fiscal year for the Lake District to do some parking improvements up in Midtown. So the city's been patient, we've been patient, kind of waiting to see how it all worked out, and now we're at a point where we can take care of both lots. The developer took care of the 4th Street lot, and with a city Ignite partnership, we can take care of the 3rd Street lot and make for better surface parking lots in Midtown that we will transfer to the city for their ownership.
And thank you, Tony. I appreciate that because I do recall now that you've shared that we have had that conversation and we had talked prior about redoing both this lot and the lot that's on 4th Street. But then the project, okay, I'm good now. Thank you.
Yeah, it went on for a few years longer than we
Yeah.
maybe expected. but I guess this is probably the end of the legacy project for Midtown, the apartments and the parking lot.
Well, and just to mention too, that this is something that, for the neighbors at our neighborhood and adjacent folks in that Midtown area. I mean, it's something that's been, kind of an issue. I mean, traffic's an issue and all of that, and this certainly isn't the only and final solution, but I think this will be a nice addition to dealing with some of that, and like you say, with some of the traffic calming measures between Third and Fourth and some of the folks. So I think it's part of the overall improvement, and certainly, aesthetics and making it look nice there in Midtown, which assume was part of the thing is with the projects we do. Gave a lot of funds to different things, and so do what we can for Midtown too.
It wasn't about the
No.
validity of the project.
Yeah.
It was merely, I'm a finance person, I'm sorry, I gotta ask the finance question.
No, but it's good to.
Good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
One other quick question. So, at some point, when the use intensity increases there and we need more parking in Midtown, we've got the old Rodale rental house to the south there. Will that mesh pretty good? Whether it's 5 years, 10 years in the future and we need more parking, will that mesh pretty good with this lot? If we were to abate that house and turn that into a parking lot, the way this design is?
Yeah, actually, one of the design iterations that I went through over the last couple of years was if that house was removed, and it would essentially just duplicate what's being shown on the screen right now. And then, if drainage would work for us, we could possibly route that back to that same swale. If not, maybe we can pick it up in a catch basin and send it there, but there's room for more parking for sure,
Right. So that swale might be able to serve the other lot too then, so
potentially.
nothing would have to really be redone as far as that lot. Everything could
Right,
work together
right.
when we do a new parking lot at some point. Okay, thanks.
Good question.
Anything else? Other than a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the Third Street parking lot renovation funding request, as it is already budgeted for, and
I'll second
it's not a
that.
project. Oh, Jim's seconding it in
Sorry
the
about that.
background.
Oh, there's people out there.
Not to exceed 50,000.
Not to exceed 50,000, thank you, Chair.
Second.
Who seconded?
Jim?
Jim,
Chapkus?
yeah.
Can't hear him very well.
No.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Thanks, that motion carries. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Chris.
Thank you.
Chris, can you downsize that one too?
Downside, like
Or just-
minimize?
Yeah, thank you. Next, under my report, Mr. Chairman, is a Lake District Termination Plan, Resolution 2202. We have Megan Conrad from Elam and Burke joining us via Zoom to kind of answer any questions that you might have about this resolution. I'll just go ahead and read the preamble to kind of set for the record what this resolution pertains to. This is a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Coeur d'Alene Urban Renewal Agency doing business as Ignite CDA of the City of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, making certain findings that revenues are sufficient to cover all estimated agency expenses for future years for the urban renewal area and revenue allocation area known as the Lake District Project Area, estimating the remaining project obligations and costs, recommending to the City Council that the revenue allocation provision for the Lake District Project Area as amended be terminated, recommending further that the City Council pass an ordinance terminating the revenue allocation provision for the urban renewal plan for Midtown, Northwest Boulevard, and Downtown Urban Renewal Project Area as amended, and returning the revenue allocation area to the regular tax roll effective tax year 2022, providing for the payment of delinquent property taxes following termination, providing for payment of certain expenses for future fiscal years, and providing an effective date. This resolution also contains 3 exhibits. Exhibit A is a Lake District Termination Plan. Exhibit B is a Lake District Fiscal Year 22 Supplemental Termination Budget. And Exhibit C is real property owned by the agency. It's basically a divestiture plan. So with that, I'll entertain any questions. You've seen the packet, and Megan is also available to answer any questions you might have, but this is part of the process. The first time we've gone through this with the agency of terminating a district. We're being coached from a very well-knowledge team in Boise about how to do this. They've done this across the state, so this is the process that is in place right now. Megan, do you have any comments at this time?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Tony, I think you did an excellent job summarizing the resolution and the exhibits there too, and I'm happy to answer any specific questions related to this task. Thank you.
Any discussion, questions?
I would just say, as a taxing district, I just received a similar notice of the termination of a district in Post Falls. And it all looks very similar, so it seems to be following the same process, so that's a level of comfort for me.
So that's probably good.
Yeah.
Those of you that are zoomed in via video conferences, do you have any questions?
I'm good, thank you.
Then you
Need
just
a motion?
Motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the Lake District Termination Plan Resolution 22-02.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call.
Evans,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Garcia,
Yes.
Hoskins,
Yes.
Chapkus,
Yes,
English.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next up, we have the Atlas project. First up is Jack Griffin from Welchcomer to kind of give you an update on the project.
Welcome back.
Thank you for having me. Alrighty. So, we're going to give you a general update on the Atlas project, the Ramsey Pit Hall operations, and then the entry monuments and landscaping, all of which I had touched on a couple months ago, the last time I was here. So this is some drone footage of the Atlas project. Currently, you're looking at the project from the southeast corner, looking west along the river. So this portion of the project right in the front is the park, which is coming along quite nicely. All the grass has and the clover has germinated well, and the Parks Department has taken over maintaining that portion of the project. Next up, this is looking the opposite direction, so we're on the west end of the project looking east. You'll see that there are some homes that are finishing construction along this portion of Atlas Road right here. I believe there's been 1 or 2 sold so far, at least as the last time I checked. And then there's continued construction in the Phase 1 infrastructure that's almost complete. Tommy Rivier's here if you've got questions that I can't answer about any of that. The last piece of that project to be done is there's a small chunk of veneer road right through here that'll be paved, we anticipate, at the end of this month.
Now, quick question.
Sure.
When you took this drone footage, is the lake at summer level or a little above or a little below? I'm just looking at how much beach there is.
This was taken June 2nd.
Okay.
I don't know
Probably
whether
around summer
that,
level then.
yeah, I haven't seen the Avista diagram for whether the lake's
Right.
at Summer Pool or not, but that gives you some
Close.
context.
Yeah, all right, thanks.
This is just another angle of that westernmost development, so you can see those houses coming up. These are, we refer to them as areas 1 and 2, which were some of the first places that were sold. So they're making good progress. The builders are making good progress in those locations. Just upland from the area 1 and 2 portion, you're seeing some of the multifamily that is in, this is called Area 10, kind of right next to Celtice Way. Again, one of the earlier areas that's been sold on the project, and we've been working with the city and the developers there to expedite that process as well. Just another angle of that same portion of the project. And then this is just for some idea of what's going on at the moment on the Atlas portion and the Ramsey Pit Hall portion of the project. So down on this lower half of the screen, you can see the litany of, these are all communications and gas utilities that are underground. Normally we don't get to see this part of the project, so we threw this one in there so you guys could see all the amount of coordination that's going on. So each of these sections of conduits that you see stubbed up here are for different dry utilities, and then this yellow line is gas. And then in the back, the mountain has shrunk a little bit since the last time you guys may have seen it, but we're continuing hauling material to Ramsey Pit. And I have good news to report, which is that we encountered material inside the mountain that is deemed structural by our geotechnical firm that's working on the project. They have some restrictions on where we can use it, but we're working with Le Riviere and with them, which is All West is the geotech on the project. We're working with Le Riviere and All West to get a plan together as to how to use that material in the most effective way. So, yeah, question?
And yeah, the mountain has really come down. I drive back and forth there all the time, and just kind of to clarify, along the Centennial Trail and going up to Suzanne, and then basically the east side of kind of Mount Hank, and it's gotten shaved down. But I assume when all is said and done, there will still be quite a slope there, because what's up there now, I mean, I'm assuming you're going to end up with pretty much level, which means you got to have kind of a slope at that end. Is that?
It's an astute observation. We're not 100% sure what that area is going to look like yet, and there's a good reason for that, and it's because we don't know exactly how much of this structural material there is. The best case scenario is the rest of the mountain is this structural material that we can use. The requirement is it needs to be 10 feet below whatever the final grade is. So if the rest of the mountain is that stuff and it just needs to be picked up, put back, and compacted, then we have a bunch of material that we can use to try to create that feel that you're thinking about, of that flat top, kind of at the Celtice grade, so to speak. And then there would be some amount of slope down that eastern side that you're mentioning. If, for example, we were to come through the top portion of that structural material and then find more bark that needed to be hauled away, then the site grading might change. And because we haven't gotten through all that material to figure out what it is, we don't know yet what the final site will look like.
And I mean, see, at one point, I think I remember that expected to be kind of done with all of that sometime in August, is that, or what's the time?
Yes, the hall is anticipated to be done sometime in August, absolutely, yep. So the thought is, and Tommy can speak more to this if you guys have questions that I can't answer, but the idea at the moment is that we'll start essentially taking this structural material, flopping it back behind us where we've already started hauling material out, and then we'll do that as long as we can, and if we encounter material that needs to be hauled out, we'll haul that off in the process. And then once that process is finished in August, we'll kind of see, okay, how much material do we have to work with? How much material do we still need to bring in to do the things that we want to do? There's a number of different options for what that site can look like at the end of the day. The simplest one is, we call it the bowl option, which is basically everything ends up down at the grade you're seeing here. So that's, the mountain all goes away. We'd rather not do that if we don't have to, because it's expensive to take all that material off site if you can use it on site. The second option is you can utilize that material on site if it's deemed to be structural and there's enough quantity to build up to that flat plane that you were talking about up at the Celtice grade. And then there's a litany of options in between those if there's some mix of those two material types.
And just a quick one, as far as kind of the dynamics of the trucks and all of that, are there still as many trucks going back and forth now, or?
Yeah, so.
Even with okay.
For about the last 2 months, yeah, there's been 18 to 20 trucks operating at the same time, doing that loop between the Atlas site and the Ramsey pit.
And how many loads daily?
Their cycle time varies depending on traffic, but the cycle time for one truck to go from Atlas to Ramsey and back varies between somewhere in the range of 15 to 45 minutes, depending on what traffic is. I apologize, I don't know the number of trucks or the number of cycles per day.
That's a wide range. Ask a question?
Yeah.
Go for it.
I have a couple questions. The first one, just out of curiosity, where all those conduit sweeps are there.
Yeah.
What's going there?
So this will be, so this chunk of conduits in the middle will have a transformer at it. And so there's a dry utility easement in this location. So essentially all of the utilities come to this one spot so that they can serve a number of different houses from that one location.
Just right next to Celtice?
This is Celtice is behind the mountain from where you're looking now. You're sitting on what will be Lumber Lane. I don't know if I have a,
Okay, so this is.
yeah, actually you're sitting,
This is south of Mount Hinc then.
correct, you're sitting somewhere right in here.
Okay.
So those conduits are somewhere in this area and you're looking north to see the mountain. Yep, absolutely.
Now, right now, it's still an open question on what can be done where Mount Hinc is sitting,
Yeah.
until we get down to the bottom of it.
Yeah, and so discovering this this quantity of structural material, although we don't know exactly how much it is, that certainly opens up our options a little bit for what can be done in that area.
So that's good.
Yeah.
And I had one other question too. On the pit that's being filled in on Ramsey, I noticed at the east side of it, they're dumping logs down in there. I'm thinking maybe they're the logs they're cutting along the freeway where they're taking the trees out along I-90 there, but does
So,
that have
I-
any bearing on the stability of that pit being filled or anything?
Okay, a couple of things in there. So the first one was part of the agreement with ITD, between ITD and Le Riviere, was that ITD had some logs on their site already that they wanted to put in the pit. So Le Riviere has done that for ITD, kind of outside of the scope of our project. Le Riviere also took the brush and logs from the Atlas site that needed to be hauled off and disposed of somewhere and put those in that pit as well.
That's the fresh ones.
As far as material from anywhere else, I'm not aware of any.
No, I'm just wondering where all the fresh logs could have come from, and I watched them cutting the trees along the freeway, and I didn't know if it was some of those or what, but I saw the old logs that have been there forever, and then I noticed a bunch of fresh logs with them, so I just was curious about that.
Yep. To answer your other question about the stability.
Right.
So our geotechnical team has told us that we are allowed to put those logs in there, and they have a specific process for how to fill material around that organic material as they're coming up
That's
from the
interesting.
pit.
And
If
then
it-
the ground could be stable above it.
Well, so stable relatively. So stable for buildings, no. Stable for a soccer field or something along those lines, yes. And that was kind of the idea of that from the
Well, yeah, there's
beginning,
never been
right?
a plan to put a building there, so.
Exactly. We're putting
No,
a
I-
bunch of organic material in that pit. A building on top of that is not something that our geotech has
No, I
recommended.
recall that. I recall the idea's been soccer fields, possibly some parking in certain areas of it.
Yep.
I just imagining logs decaying over the years, so I wasn't sure if we'd end up with a bowl in there, or what was gonna happen when they covered those logs up.
Yeah, and so that's one of the things that our geotechnical engineer has provided input on is what's the way to make the settlement due to the decaying of that organic material as minimal as possible. So there's a couple of things that we're doing, but one of them is capping that pit when we're done. So all that bark material goes in, and then we'll put soil over the top of it at the end, and that will serve to help at least slow the process of that organic material breaking down.
Okay. So they can worry about it in 100 years from now then.
So Phil has less than positive news than you do, so maybe we could have Jack come back
You guys want me to
more
come back
often.
more often? I appreciate that.
Any
All
other
right.
questions?
Any other questions on this one?
Thank you.
No problem. Okay. Speaking of the haul, 18 to 20 trucks a day, like I said before, plus or minus 5,000 yards a day, and we were just shy of 270,000 yards. It says to date, but that was as of when I first started this presentation about a week ago. So it's probably a little more than that by now. Discovered structural material in Mount Hinc. We've talked about that a little bit. Yeah, I think we've actually gone through all of this, so we'll just move right along. So Phil had shown you guys this slide in his previous presentation, which was in this yellow zone. We anticipated there was going to be structural material in there based on these bore logs. Each of these little circles is one of the bore logs that we had done. Sorry, I should clarify, either a test pit or a bore that we had done prior to the project. And so the material that we found in that yellow area wasn't structural. So that meant that we had a lot less structural material than we thought. But that's now balanced out by finding some amount of structural material in this blue area. This is an aerial from that Mount Hinc area of the Atlas site. You can see there are still pockets of bark that are getting removed from the site, but this wide kind of open pad that you're seeing at the top here, this contains some of that structural material that we're now able to reuse. Just another angle from a slightly different point in time of that same area.
So old pits 1 and 2 then are completely filled?
Yeah, so let me go back a couple. So pit 1 has been fully remediated, so all the bark's gone, structural soil back in it. Pit 2, the bark is gone. We have just recently, within the last couple of weeks, we found the northern edge of pit 2, but the eastern edge of pit 2 seems to be further east than we had anticipated. There is, from the investigation we've done out there so far, there is some band of structural material between pit 2 and pit 3. And Tommy, have we found the eastern edge of pit 2 just yet? Not yet. Okay, that's what I thought. So we're still working on trying to find the eastern edge of this pit. But to the south, it's been remediated. To the north, we've done all the excavation that we need to do. And that's one of the areas that we can take this structural material and put it in the bottom of that pit to start working our way back up.
Perfect. So you have a place to take it. That's good.
Any other questions on that? Perfect, okay. All right, ongoing items. We'll just touch on these really quick. So landscaping, entry monuments, and development management. For the landscaping, we've got irrigation planning to be complete by the end of July. That's a little bit based on being able to get the materials that are required, but we think that that timeline is doable. And then landscaping obviously has to come after the irrigation, so we're anticipating that'll be by the end of September. For the entry monuments, we're targeting the fall and winter of this year for those to be completed. And then for development management, there's coordination going on with the different developers and potential buyers for the different sites. The primary one at the moment is Toll Brothers. They're the buyers in areas 3 and 4. And we have a long checklist of items that are either on our plate or on their plate in order to get the DDA closed and the sale finalized for that property. And so we're racing toward that as quickly as we can. And then we have an on-site site manager that is coordinating with all the developers as well as the utility companies, the mail, the postal service, and the waste management as well to make sure that all those pieces are in place for the residents. And I'm happy to report that one of the tri-utility companies has finally gotten live service to this area. So it was about time for those residents to get some internet service. And then the last one is the Atlas Design Review Committee, or you might know it as the ADRC, is reviewing proposals for areas 8, 5A, and 13. The 5A and 13 proposal in particular, we just got a new packet yesterday, Tony, from 5A and 13?
Today.
Today. So that's the newest one that's come in the door that we're going to be looking at over the next few days to a week or so.
Excellent.
I think that's all I've got, unless there are any other questions.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Great update, thank you.
Thank you all.
Jack.
Take care.
Jack, can you close all the way out of that, please?
Yep.
Thanks. Finally, Mr. Chairman, the last item is areas 3 and 4 Toll Brothers siding of sales trailer. Toll Brothers has made a request to site a sales trailer on the southeast corner of area 4 that you see on the screen in a circle here. This is area 4 of the project site. And this is the southeast corner that they're looking to put the sales trailer. But the request is prior to closing. They have not closed on area 3 or 4. Our new closing date is no later than July 20th. They've asked for an extension due to review of building permits. So this is a little out of the normal type of process, but trying to be in cooperative spirit here. Ignite is willing to kind of work with them to allow this pre-closing as long as we have a license agreement, which we do, and I've shared with you that's in hand and been reviewed by our legal counsel, and also that we have the appropriate insurance in place to cover any liability that we might be exposed to due to the sales trailer. So they like to get the sales trailer in place. That's their model as they're building their first set of townhomes. They like to pre-sale. They like to have this kind of kind of show and tell opportunities as part of their business model. So we're willing to partner with them and seek your approval to enter into that license agreement.
Now, does Danielle have any issues?
Pardon?
Does Danielle have any issues?
No,
Or
we
she-
ran this by Danielle and Sarah Reed in Boise. They're fine with it. We had a few changes to it with the license agreement that Toll accepted, and so everybody's happy.
And they also have to provide some kind of insurance.
Right, that insurance certificate has not arrived yet, but we will not proceed with that until it does, and they've assured me today that I'd have it today, but today's not over.
Okay?
I think
Yes,
it's
if it doesn't
fine.
close, we can take the sales trailer out. But I think it'll close.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of being accommodative. I think it's fine. I have no issue with it. You need a motion on this one?
Yes, I do.
I'll make a motion then to approve the Toll Brothers sitting a sales trailer on areas 3 and 4.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Jim.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Next on the agenda is time for board commissioner comments. Any board commissioner comments?
Well, I guess maybe just it's a follow-up to that with Tony and the general picture of, the real estate market maybe kind of changing a bit or simmering down a bit. Could you just remind, out of the whole Atlas project there now, and just kind of a, rough percentage, I mean, how much have we got committed? I mean, not something, but I mean, how much has been sold, what's maybe in the process, and how much is purely, boy, we haven't done anything for sales with that yet because maybe we can't, so.
So what we have under contract now is areas 1 and 2. Let's see, I'll bring up the first slide here and try to walk you through this. So what we have sold is area 1 and 2 here, area 6, and those are all being developed right now. Area 6 is being developed by Active West. They're putting townhomes and duplexes over here. Area 1 and 2 are single-family homes. Area 10 has been sold. That's where the apartments are going right now. Area 12 has been sold. That's also where apartments will be built after Area 10 is complete. We are currently in negotiations. We are under a DDA contract with Toll Brothers for areas 3 and 4, right here. Those will be all townhomes. And we're currently in negotiations right now on Area 13 and Area 5A. That's with the Butler, Stone, Pereira development team. So as you recall, we've extended that A&E deadline to July 1st to enter into a DDA, and we're working with them quite a bit right now to bring that to closure.
So where's area 5B and 8?
5B is right here, so that's been closed. That's going to be the Butler, Ann Butler and John Butler team. That would be duplexes. And area 8 over here is closed, and that is single-family houses right here and duplexes up here.
So, good, substantial, yeah.
Right.
It's substantially spoken for, and if the market does different things and we had to pause, we're not in the worst shape, so.
Yeah.
Which area is it, Tony, that's closing the end of the year?
It's closing at the end of the year.
I thought there was one closing the end of the year, one of these areas. Maybe not.
This one might, if we get into a DDA, this would hopefully close by the end of the year, area 5A
That's the one,
and
okay.
13.
That's the one, yeah.
You mean the end of,
But we're not under the DDA yet, so that's
The end
still
of the calendar year, I
not a
think.
given.
Thank you.
Any further comments? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion we adjourn.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks. And that's a wrap, Jeff.
Thank you, Chairman.